Okay, in this video I'm going to take you through the appendicular landmarks. I will be using pages 62 and 63 in your lab manual. I will go through each bone in order and I will show you each of these landmarks that you can find over here on the right hand side. Let's start with the scapula. The scapula here, we've got the suprascapular notch. Supra, think superior, notch, you can see this groove. So here is the suprascapular notch. You've got the acromion process, is this large piece on the lateral side of the bone helping to make up the shoulder. And the coracoid process is the next piece down. And the glenoid cavity is the socket that is helping to make up the shoulder with the humerus. Now what we've got here is alphabetical order A, C, G. Acromion process, coracoid process, glenoid cavity. Along the back side of the scapula, we have this protruding process here we call a spine. You can feel the spine if you feel on the back of your shoulder blade there. Above the spine is this groove we call the supraspinous fossa. Below the spine, this groove is the infraspinous fossa, so superior, inferior in the names. And then deep, if you flip it over, deeper would be the subscapular fossa. As far as the clavicle goes, we have the sternal end, which is the thicker end here, and we have the acromial end, which is going to go up to the acromion process on the scapula and help make up the shoulder. So here's the acromial end. And then we have the conoid tubercle, that bump there near the acromial end.
Hey.
I'm recording, so if you're wondering what I'm doing. Let's see, let's look at the humerus. We've got the head of the humerus here, is this round portion. We have this large portion on the lateral outside called the greater tubercle. And we have this little portion here called the lesser tubercle. Now if we look down a little bit further, there's a roughened ridge here that we call the deltoid tuberosity. And if we come down to the distal end here that makes up the elbow, you can see the trochlear notch right here. You can actually see it looks like it's got a little T, letter T in it, T for trochleae. I think I just called that the trochlear notch, but that is actually the trochleae. It will sit in the trochlear notch in a minute. So we have the trochleae here. We have this round portion here we call the capitulum. And then we have a little groove in the front and a big groove in the back. Back side of the arm and the elbow region, remember, was the olecranon region. So this big groove here is the olecranon fossa. Fossa means groove. Olecranon is on the back. Because on the front, we also have a fossa, but it's a smaller fossa, and we're going to call this the coronoid fossa. So coronoid fossa is in the front. Now, articulating with the humerus to help make up the elbow is going to be the ulna. You can tell it's the ulna. You can see the little U right there. This U notch is called the trochlear notch. So the trochleae sits in the trochlear notch to help make up the elbow. So here's the trochleae, here's the trochlear notch. Now, the olecranon fossa back here is where the olecranon process will go. So all of this back here on the ulna is the olecranon process, and then the olecranon process goes into the olecranon fossa. So fossa is a groove, process sticks out. Same thing for the front. You've got the coronoid process will go into the coronoid fossa. So if we put this back together, when you bend your elbow, you can see how that coronoid process fits into the coronoid fossa. So this is the coronoid process, this is the coronoid fossa. Then we've got on the distal end of the ulna, where the carpals would articulate, you've got this pointy piece we call the styloid process. And there's also a styloid process on this bone, which we call the radius. And that's going to be right here, this styloid process, again down by the carpals. Up by the elbow, we've got this round portion here, the radial head, would actually sit right under that capitulum. And you need to identify this protuberance here called the radial tuberosity. If I turn it to the side, you can see a little bit better that radial tuberosity. Let's move further down to the hips and let's look at the coxal bone. The coxal bone has 3 bones fused together. Let's review that. This is the ilium up here. The side that you're sitting on is the ischium, and then towards the front is the pubis. So on the coxal bone itself, you need to identify the hole right here called the obturator foramen, the socket called the acetabulum, and then up on the ilium, you need to identify this crest, this iliac crest. When you put your hands on your hips, you're putting your hands on the iliac crest. Towards the back here, you'll see a notch. This is the greater sciatic notch. And if there's a greater, you'll also find a lesser. Here's the lesser sciatic notch. It's just below this piece sticking out here called the ischial spine. Now last week we looked at this piece here to figure out front from back and left from right, and we called this the butt bone. This is the ischial tuberosity. This is the part you're sitting on. Towards the front here, we're going to identify the pubic symphysis and the pubic arch, but it'll be easier to do that with an articulated pelvis.